All right. So that's good. I was debating as to whether or not I was going to throw this one up like unlisted. I was going to do it live. I was going to like do it unlisted, post it to the competitors page. However I wanted to do it, it didn't matter. I'm just going to post it live to the vlog channel for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not so proud of what we've accomplished so far that I'm, unable to admit mistakes that we've made along the way, or that there aren't things that we could be doing better. I mean, after all, the enemy of better is good enough, and that swings both ways. Sometimes you just have to do the best you can, and sometimes you have to acknowledge that there's an opportunity to improve things, and having an event that's spread out over a 5-day period as opposed to one consolidated day of play makes that a feasible challenge that you could encounter, and that's where we're at this point. So we're on the website, foamprotour.com. If you're watching this and you just have no interest in competitive Nerf, this is what's going on in my life right now, and I'm very excited about it. I'm very passionate about it, and you're on my vlog channel, so we're going to talk about it. Alternatively, maybe you just like watching me eat humble pie, and that's fine too. Effectively, there have been a couple of snafus in the rules. I have a hard copy of the rules for this game type, and this game type is meant to be a pretty good representation of how to play Nerfing competitively. We've got all different parts of this website. If you haven't checked out the schedule yet, schedule tells you that in a week we're going to be in California. There's a lot of you watching this video right now because I'm going to send it to you in California who are going to be like there, and I'm excited to see you guys. It means a lot to me that you're coming out and kind of supporting what is objectively a crazy dream of, a competitive pro circuit invitational style tournament. Then we've got the last chance qualifier, which is for absolutely anybody who's going to be at End War that wants to compete in the top 8. And all I can tell you is that if half of what I've been promised that I'm going to get to give to players during this top 8 comes to fruition, you want to be in the top 8. It's going to be really cool. And then of course we've qualified some amazing teams already. Down in Sanford, we qualified combo number 5, which is effectively a Georgia team. I know a lot of people on that team, and then we qualified Beef Squad, winning that qualifier, which is a Florida team, actually. I didn't know it was a Florida team because Valor used to be on it, but it is a Florida team. And then we qualified 2 pretty awesome teams at qualifier 2, Rochester Radioactive being just a top shelf team. I mean, they were hosting tryouts. They came out of nowhere. They showed up to do work, and they clean swept the win, which is something that Beef Squad did not do in Florida. So this was a 5-0 win for Rochester Radioactive. And then Frumble, which is kind of like an Ohio amalgamation of guys that have been practicing all season, and it's actually their second stab at it. They came in third at the first one, and then they tried again at the second one, and you love to see that. But that's our story so far. Those games were played using this. This is Sin Zone. And Sin Zone was designed to kind of create more dynamic and engaging gameplay that streamlined and simplified the 5v5 kind of format for foam flinging. And given the game type that I designed for the 2019 season, which we used for a long time down here as kind of like Southeast competitive practice stuff, and definitely did a lot of tinkering with, I think that that's a solid game type, but I, wanted to change some things up. I wanted to take more of a sci-fi inspiration from Ender's Game, and I wanted to do away with this kind of hiccup in the center where people would stutter to get either out of cover or into cover to gather the hat or the bandana. And while I think that that's an easy game piece to have, the field already requires so many moving pieces that not fooling with hidden information, who's got the hat, stuff, and it does lead to some exciting plays, but I think that this is a far more streamlined way of finding out who is the better competitive foam flinger. And that's the purpose of Sin Zone, is a very clean, very simple version of elimination style game type with various field layouts. There are a lot of things that I think it has terrific merit in, but we made a couple of mistakes translating the hard copy, which was pretty comprehensive, into an online copy. And while we've had, super fair gameplay, we've had excellent sportsmanship at the first 2 qualifiers where everybody understood the rules, some of the confusion that I've seen has come from I can make myself a little bit bigger now that, there we go. Some of the confusion that I've seen has come from people who are watching it from afar or waiting for their qualifier, and they're like, wait, why are they scoring? What is scoring? And somehow in the translation, we just completely blipped out the scoring. of, getting the enemy's gate is down, which is not actually the gate down thing. If you read Ender's Game, it's more of a positional thing in space, but that is what it is. You can score by getting a live player into your enemy's gate or into your enemy's starting point or goal or whatever you want to call it. That's been represented at both qualifiers. All of the players have understood that comprehensively due to what is a pretty exhaustive rules briefing at the beginning, followed by a Q&A before we actually launch into the competitive. So there haven't been any actual complaints from people who have played the game type, but people who have been speculating on the game type have been like, that doesn't make sense because it wasn't on the website. And I'm like, you're right. It wasn't. That's my mistake. Pobody's nerfed, as they say, and we've made that abundantly clear in Rule 2. We've made that far more clear. Now, there was a change, and this is an actual change, whereas this is a clarification of me making something far more obvious so that moving forward everybody understands it and the rules make more sense to people reading them and playing them. There is something that I've actually changed here in Rule number 2, but before I guess we get into that, I want to explain just that the game type is worded in such a way that there have been a few Q&A type things that have come up at both events. So first off, the reason that the ammo is worded the way that it is so that the game is scalar, right? If you don't have enough players in your environment to play competitive 5v5, you can use the same rule types or field design, no matter how big or small your field is, or your number of players on opposing teams, to create a 3v3 tournament, a 2-on-2 tournament, and it stays dynamic because the ammo scales with the game type. And the ammo winds up being your biggest limiting resource over the course of the theoretical 3 or more games played. And the ability to score as a live person after you either run out of ammo or choose to maintain ammo in some other way. It's just an interesting kind of addition to that because there is a way to score, and obviously the only way to stop somebody from scoring is to shoot them. So you would have to have ammo on your team to stop enemies from running the gate. Very, very Ender's Game, very Battle School. That's not the point necessarily. I like the idea of sudden deaths. I'm a big fan of the old comedy movie Dodgeball. It's just very exciting. This would only occur in an instance where we just cannot seem to achieve victory through two points per Rule 2. Other things that are in here that need clarification, and this is one that's important for California, is when these rules were written, and I'm a big fan of the intent of the rules being far more meaningful than the specific verbiage, because then we get into gamesmanship and advantage plays and grifting effectively. When the rules were written, there were no effective AEGs in the hobby, and life moves pretty fast, and there are now AEGs not only homemade but also commercially available running around the hobby that are certainly breaking in this instance. So whether I have to do it now or I'll do it later is irrelevant for the purposes of your practicing and your team composition for qualifiers, and none of this will apply to the top 8 obviously, but for the purposes of qualifiers where it says spring-powered FPS cap of 250 and flywheel-powered FPS cap of 200, let's just be clear. The intent there is that your higher FPS blasters should be manually operated, which is to say lower rate of fire. And then your 200 FPS blasters should be, flywheel operated, or in this case have the ability to do burst and full auto fire. And there's been a lot of very clever and very talented people who have pointed out to me, Drac, what if I made an AEG that shot 250 FPS? That would be a Springer. And I'm like, yeah, well, is that even going to be that big a deal? Surely it'll be heavy. Surely it won't have a high rate of fire. And then, within the last, I guess, week or so, somebody sent me multiple videos of AEGs going brrr, and I'm like, no, come on. So just, in the future, I will revise these rules, this document further, so that it is a manually powered FPS cap of 250, which is to say you power it with your body. There is no stored energy beyond the energy that you put into it. And instead of flywheel, it'll be assisted powered. And that covers anything electronic or, a railgun that you power with magnets from your forearms. I have no idea. Anytime you put rules into something, people will try to break those rules in such a way that they're not technically breaking the rules, which is why it is important for your TO to have kind of administration and integrity and not participate in their own event and blah, 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 so that we can run a fair event that, the spirit of the rules is upheld. But the part that we have changed, because that's the thing that we fixed that was just not written properly. And then the thing that we changed, which, or the thing that, doesn't necessarily, I think, need changing, but definitely needs explaining so that you understand how those blasters will be chronographed if you show up with an AEG that shoots 230. I needed to shoot 190, 195. Otherwise, it's going to be disallowed for play. But the thing that we've actually changed, and I want to explain why because it's very important to me personally, is that we have changed the way that timeouts work effectively. And originally, I wanted there to be, how do I explain this? The original intent was that a timeout could occur awarding a point, and the way that the first two qualifiers have worked is that a timeout occurred if the clock ran to 0, and then a point would be awarded to the team that had more players alive. And when I was writing the rules, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you did more damage, you did more work, you should be rewarded for that, obviously. But the way that it played was a little bit different. And since I don't necessarily play like everybody else, even in testing, this never came up. Because in testing, we never had a match go to time. Savvy players realized, particularly by the end of the second qualifier, this didn't happen at the first qualifier, but at the end of the second qualifier, we had very effective teams recognizing that if they got up a player in terms of we have 3 people in cover, and they have 2 people in cover, the 3 people would turtle, which made it kind of hard for the 2 people to get back into it or re-achieve parity. Now, there were some great breakaway plays where, the team that had lower numbers during the kind of stall, if you will, would then break away and try and score. And in trying to score, they would either eliminate enough players that now the game was, kind of rejuvenated, or they would not. The part that was disappointing as a referee, as a TO, etc., is that there were a couple of games where it just stalled out completely, and you had coaches yelling at players who were up 4-2 not to do anything. And I was like, this is so anticlimactic. It's not fun. It doesn't scream the spirit of the hobby to me to have, a team that has an advantage not play. And so anytime that a rule leads to people not participating, that's no fun. So I think that we can all unanimously agree that more flinging foam in our foam flinging hobby is better. So we've amended the rules such that a timeout occurs when the game clock hits 0. However, no point is awarded. And I think that that's really important because in the situation that I've just described to you, it forces the team that believes they have an advantage. So let's go back to our turtle example of we have 4 guys, they have 2 guys, their 2 guys are in cover, our 4 guys are in cover, and the coach is now screaming from the sidelines don't move, don't do anything, just hold, wait it out. And then we all have to sit there for 60 seconds while we wait for the clock to go out and that team to be awarded a point. Now that no longer happens, and the team that has 4 players has to either push to score or press their advantage. And the team that's already on their back foot because they have lower numbers and therefore less resources, they can take advantage of the cover on their side of the field to perhaps play a more defensive game and try and prevent scoring. Either way, given that there's no incentive to turtle anymore, I think that that's far more exciting. And now if there is a draw, it's a draw in an instance where either players don't know what their opponent's ammo is. I feel like that only now happens in a one-on-one situation where nobody really wants to make the first move, and instead of not making the first move, time gets away from them and nobody scores. In which case, nobody gets any rewards. They get all of their teammates back and they get to kind of recenter, re-strategize, and go from there. I firmly believe that this rule, now that it's sort of been the whatever you want to call it, the puzzle has been solved, and everybody knows that the puzzle has been solved. I think that amending this rule leads to far more compelling gameplay, more exciting gameplay, and I think that it's the way that it should have been all along. But, again, I think that it's really important to acknowledge that it's okay to make mistakes. And nobody's perfect. This is our second year of the Foam Pro Tour, and for all of our efforts, I think that we've done a very good job, and we've qualified 4 really amazing teams so far. And I don't believe that this rule change would necessarily have assisted or affected the outcome of any of our matches. However, even if we want to start playing what ifs and could have beens and have you and have not, luckily I think that we're making this change for the better in advance of the last chance qualifier, allowing anybody who might feel otherwise another opportunity to compete with this revised rule set, which is what we'll be using in the top 8 anyway. So that's 15 minutes of me talking about why a one-page document has been amended, which, you know, is what it is. But, you know, you could listen to this rant or not. I'd love feedback in the comments, actually. I don't get a lot of constructive feedback. There's really only, as a TO of an event like this where everybody is so involved and everybody is so passionate, you really only get 2 kinds of feedback, and neither one of them are particularly productive. And I guess I'll give an example. This is kind of like when you run anything that you're very passionate about and all of the participants are very passionate about. You get 2 pieces of feedback, and they're the 2 worst kind of feedback. One kind is the 10 out of 10 handshake, thank you, had an amazing time, this was great. And I love that because it makes me feel good, it makes the person who came feel good. It's a really good feeling to get the 10 out of 10 feedback and you walk away from it like, yeah, and then there's nothing to change. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's useless. It's wonderful and I appreciate it, and please don't stop doing it, especially if you genuinely feel that way. But it doesn't help me become a better tournament organizer. It doesn't help me run better events because it's just saying like, you know what? You did a good job. And that's great. It's great. But nobody's perfect. So there's always things that you could improve on. And then the other kind of feedback is unfortunately also not productive at all because it's usually, it's never to my face, which means that I have to hear about it secondhand or third hand. And it's usually very spiteful. And it's never productive. It's like, I thought Drax's cover was bad. And it's like, well, you know, that's fine. Why? And they don't usually have a good answer. And it's almost always people who weren't there or didn't play the cover or play the field. They just took a look at it and they were like, I don't agree with that. I think that Drax is stupid. And I'm like, well, that's fine. Like, I do stupid stuff sometimes. That doesn't hurt my feelings necessarily. It would hurt my feelings maybe if it was in person. But on the internet, like, whatever. The part that's not productive is that there's no you should do this. I think this would be better. I've tested this. I've tried this, etc. And so, like, you know, the most valuable feedback I have on the tournament so far is actually from people who have run similar events, not even necessarily nerfing events, but like paintball events and large-scale airsoft events and stuff like that. And then it's not as personal or as valuable because they also haven't attended. So if you have comments that you feel like are productive, and I would prefer they're kind, but if you want to be mean, have at it. It's the internet. Then that could be valuable too. But I've extended a 15-minute ramble into an 18-minute ramble now. So thanks, guys. I hope that you are enjoying the tournament so far. I'm really excited to see who wins. I'm very excited to give you guys a bunch of money that isn't mine this year. That's really cool. And I'll see you in California, and then after that, I'll see you in Rochester. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I don't know. I know how to end a video that isn't my normal format.